Hey everybody, this is your host Chris Reyes. Tonight's episode was our review on Paths of Glory. It was recorded last week, and I didn't get a chance to finish editing it until this week. It was recorded the week of Thanksgiving, and we had a weekly segment aspect where we talked about the trailers for the possible trailers for Jurassic Park 4 and Star Wars. Unfortunately, that part was deleted because as of right now, it's December 1st, and the trailers have already been released. So we'll talk about those in a future episode. But as of right now, we'll just jump straight into a review of Paths of Glory. Please enjoy.
Since the publication of the book 25 years ago, no one dared to make this movie. It was too shocking, too frank.
Sort of casualties do you anticipate, sir?
Say 5% killed by our own barrage. It's a very generous allowance. 10% more in getting through no man's land, and 20% more getting through the wire. That leaves 65%, with the worst part of the job over. Let's say another 25% in actually taking the anthill. We're still left with a force more than adequate to hold it.
General, you're saying that more than half my men will be killed.
Aside from the inescapable fact that a good many of your men never left the trenches, there's the question of the troops' morale. Don't forget that.
The troops' morale, sir.
Certainly. These executions will be a perfect tonic for the entire division. There are few things more fundamentally encouraging and stimulating than seeing someone else die.
What you just heard was the original trailer for Paths of Glory. It was directed by Stanley Kubrick. You may know him as the director of 2001: A Space Odyssey and Spartacus. And it stars Kirk Douglas, who surprisingly is still alive with us to this very day.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
97.
Wow.
If he lives on for the next 2 years, he'll be 100.
Phew.
This was your first time watching this, am I right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What did you think of Paths of Glory?
It was a good film. It was definitely a message film. It wasn't. I mean, it was, and I think that kind of does fit in line with a lot of Stanley Kubrick's other films. Is that it's very, very poignant about a particular message. In this one, it wasn't really an anti-war message. It was more a humans are bad people. But that's the takeaway I got from it. But beyond that, it was a good film. I enjoyed watching just the cinematography and how they staged everything and how just the thought that they put into where your position is going to be as the actor. You're going to walk across the room. You're going to do this. You're going to say that, and just the intricate detail that they put into directing it.
Well, my relationship with this movie, I think for a lot of people who probably saw it for the first time when it was released in 1957, they were kind of expecting, this happy ending type of thing, but it doesn't happen. We'll talk about that a little later. But so when I was really as a kid, I was really shocked where it ended at. And I'm like, that's it? There's no more battle scenes or something like that? And that's, I was a little kid and I was always into action movies, but what I missed the point was, what the movie was trying to say about, as you just said, Ben, about the evil that exists in humanity. We as as Christians, we know what that means. Humanity's, the fallen nature of mankind.
Yeah, the depravity of man. Yeah.
Yeah. But let me just say this. This is in my top 10 favorite films of all time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably number 7. I think it's like right below Empire Strikes Back for me. Like it's actually probably one of my favorite black and white movies as well. I mean, the black and white cinematography is very crisp. And it makes you, and it feels like a documentary. And the way that Kubrick, and this is just showing you, of course, the great director that he was, even though he did a lot of movies that I don't necessarily see eye to eye with. Yeah. In some cases, because maybe their messages, or maybe because of the significance that they have in the film history. The way that Kubrick directed this movie, he made you feel that you were in the situations, whatever it is. I mean, the dramatic situations, the war situations, but Kubrick made you feel, and again, it just shows you it's a testament to his body of work that he makes you how he makes you feel in these situations. You know, whether you feel just disturbed or uncertain, you just feel.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just the atmospheric tone that he goes with in this movie is amazing, and this was like I think his second or third film that he directed, and it's amazing what he manages to achieve here. You know, he had directed The Killing, and I think something else. I think it's called Fear and Desire.
Yeah, I've got besides the documentary shorts, I've got Fear and Desire, The Killer's Kiss, and then The Killing, and then Paths of Glory.
What's another thing too? You remember when a couple weeks ago we were talking about the battle scenes in Sergeant York?
Yes.
You know, we were kind of like, it's kind of that one had York was kind of more 1940s theatrics style. This, you felt it.
You did.
You felt it. I mean, it was. I liked it how one person said it's flesh and blood against metal and machine gun fire.
Mm-hmm. No, it did feel it felt really well orchestrated and very very gritty.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was only once that's like, they reused that shot. I recognized it, but beyond that, but you know, you gotta take that for granted. You know, where we have 20 different cameras all on a scene these days. You know, for them to waste footage after organizing and choreographing something that massive. Yeah.
Yeah. What was it about the battle scene that stood out to you specifically?
It was just the throwback to the tactics that they had to use in World War I. It's like, well, they didn't have air support, and they didn't, you know, no real radios back and forth. So, you know, what does he use to lead the men into battle? He uses a whistle to cut above all the noise, and it's just really, really fascinating to see that, you know, that pre-World War II.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Style. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, and you just feel the carnage. You just feel like you even see a person's body explode from a bomb. And all that stuff. You see that happen.
I think it conveyed really well just the horror of war.
Yeah.
Aside from the bayonet, what are you most afraid of?
Explosives.
Exactly, and it's the same with me, because I know that it can chew you up worse than anything else. Look, it's just like I'm trying to tell you. If you're really afraid of dying, you'll be living in a funk all the rest of your life, because you know you've got to go someday, any day. And besides, if it's death that you're really afraid of, why should you care about what it is that kills you?
You're too smart for me, Professor. All I know is nobody wants to die.
While it is a war movie, or it's set in World War II, this really isn't really like a massive war movie. It's more of a war drama, set in in World War I. You know, and let's just give our audience a little bit of the plot. The plot has to concern a French regiment ordered to take a German anthill, and the officers in charge are given the impossible task, and they have to obey these orders. When the attack fails, instead of taking responsibilities of the situation themselves, they blame it on 3 random soldiers who did go into no man's land, and now they're being tried. Kirk Douglas plays Colonel Dax, a lawyer and also an army soldier as well, and he is assigned to defend the defendants. But what happens next is just some of the most inhuman things you could think of in a court of law. Well, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves because we'll talk a little bit more about it. But what did you think of Kirk Douglas's performance, by the way?
Superb as always. I've always enjoyed his performances. I especially liked him in both Spartacus and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Oh yeah. Have you seen Lust for Life? His Vincent Van Gogh?
No, I've not seen that one.
Check it out.
Yeah, surprisingly, I've not seen very many of his films. When scrolling through the IMDb list, it's like, wow, he's done quite a few films and I have not seen them.
But I've seen a lot of his work. But if you need to check out a new Douglas performance, check out that one. It is amazing. I've always admired Kirk Douglas. I mean, I grew up watching 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. His Colonel Dax is probably one of my favorite movie hero performances, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Because he is been assigned this impossible task of not only trying to lead his men, to take over the anthill, which unfortunately it fails, but he is then assigned the court duty of having to protect and defend 3 wrongfully accused men of cowardism. And the court scene, I mean, that's the highlight of this movie, is that court scene. I mean, the battle scene is a major highlight, but that court scene is dramatically the best scene in the whole movie. I mean, he gives it, I think, honestly, he gives it his all in that scene. I mean, there's a couple other moments in the movie where he definitely does give it his all, but in that specific moment when he says that I am more ashamed to be a member of the human race, and him just kind of slapping into the court's face, what have you done? There's no record
of how can you live with yourself right now?
Yeah. This is just a mockery of justice. It's funny, a lot of critics over the years have stated this as one of the greatest anti-war films ever made, and
it's not really. I don't see that at all.
I mean, you can maybe see some ideas, maybe with the ending specifically. We'll talk about that later. Maybe with the ending and maybe some bits and pieces, you can formulate it as an anti-war movie. But it's a little bit more scattered. To me, this feels more like an anti-injustice type of a film.
Yeah,
but
I didn't see it at all as an anti-war film. More as a just a message that humans are selfish and they only think about themselves. And it was more of a warning that, when people are put in power, if there's not proper things set in place to keep them accountable, then they're just going to think about themselves and do everything for their own interest.
Yeah. And this is something that, the world that we live in today, we have seen many examples of this idea. And, I've witnessed this. I'm sure you have witnessed this, Ben.
Oh, yeah. You see it every day.
Yeah, I mean it's happening.
Even from the small things, like you're working cash register and that customer comes through and just the little things they do. It's like, wow, what a selfish person.
Yeah. And well, in this particular situation, they're, especially for people who are legally in the wrong, how much they try to cover up their own sins, so to speak. And it's kind of theologically tying into, man tries to hide his own sin. You look at Adam and Eve, they sinned against God. What did they do? They tried to blame on each other, And in this particular situation, what was the name of the colonel or the general?
Let me look it up here. But yeah.
Who was assigned the impossible task of trying to take over the anthill, and when it doesn't succeed, he just goes into a fanatic mode where he believes that his men are cowards. And he's just trying to cover up his own. He's just trying to clean his hands of the entire situation. But what did you think of the court scene?
At that point, the thing that stood out to me the most was just the cinematography, and watching the footwork as he worked his way around the room and just hit all the markers and just watching how the camera work, worked with that as they paced back and forth and talked, and just looking at the orchestration behind that, it was what caught my attention the most.
When you look at that scene, it's like the court just does not value the human life in that situation. It's like you're trying to win a war. France is I need to look back and look up, the World War One scenarios where who was stronger, the French or the Germans at the time. I'm not.
Yeah,
I would like to look at.
Yeah, I'm not that familiar with World War One. More so with World War Two.
Yeah. But yeah, I would like to look up and see what the circumstances were between France and Germany. Who was the stronger opposition? Was it France or was it Germany? If the weaker one was France, you would think that they would try to put the value of human life to help them win the war. But no, it is basically, we need to just set an example of what has happened today to show the people.
Well, yeah, for the pride of the French, basically. Which I just, when he said that, I couldn't help but just about die laughing. It's like, the pride of the French have always run. What are we talking about?
Yeah, that's kind of true. They've always run. But you just see the inhumanity in that courtroom scene, and even the juror, well, yeah, the court marshal has already, you can just tell that they've already predetermined that we're not going to even pardon these men. You know?
Oh yeah, they're just, it's like, you know, whether they're innocent or not, we're just going to go through it real quickly and get it over with. Get it done. Yeah.
Like when that one guy is asking him all these ridiculous questions, and by the way, I love the way that they wrote that scene. Just the dialogue that is held in that scene when where the prosecutor is talking to the soldiers. He's asking them, like, how many meters how far did you get? You know, did you reach the German wire? And like, no, I didn't reach the German wire, so that's why I had to retreat. I didn't ask you what you saw or what you did, you know. I asked you.
Yeah.
He's asking him these frivolous questions that
silencing the truth. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. They're silencing the truth. When not realizing that, wait a minute, you all have a role to play in this thing.
Exactly.
Did you like the way that they wrote the jury scene?
Yeah. No, and I found it incredibly frustrating because of that.
Exactly. You felt so frustrated of what was going on in that moment because you can't help but feel helpless for him. And even Colonel Dax in that moment is like, he's even more shocked of what's going on.
Yeah.
He's trying to bring character witnesses.
Yeah.
He's trying to read them past examples.
Yeah. And when they dismissed all that, it's like, well, that absolutely has bearing on their action now.
Yeah.
If these men were decorated for bravery numerous times over, that should hold valid in this. That should weigh in. And you know, if they actually did turn tail and run, what was the cause of that when these men are renowned for being so brave?
Yeah.
So many questions that needed to be asked, but they were unwilling to.
No, because they wanted to just get they were desperate to get their hands clean of the situation and have them executed, which, spoiler alert, it eventually does happen, that the three are eventually executed. But the one thing that got to me was the moment when cross-examined that one guy. He says, I was out cold during the whole battle.
Oh yeah.
And then they ask, and then he says, so do you have any witnesses or anything like that? Well, the biggest flaw is like, well, wait a minute, what about the guy? What about the guy that landed on top of him? I mean, wouldn't he be a witness? Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know, but then he says, I have this scar on my head. Did you notice?
Yeah.
And they just tell him, well, it could have been self-inflicted later.
It's like, well, what? That's not your job. It's not your job to speculate on how he could have faked it. Your job is to look at the evidence.
And you feel frustrated because you look at these situations and you look at the reality of the real life court issues that go on today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You look at,
and it's just as frustrating because they seem to be just as unjust.
Exactly. You look at the issues that go on today, you know, you think of the sheer stupidity of the justice system in today's world. And Kubrick captures that very well. And who wrote the script for this movie?
It was him and another
Jim Thompson and Calder Willingham.
Yeah.
So, fantastic screenplay, by the way. And I think that this movie was not even nominated for any Academy Awards. Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
No Best Picture, no Best Director, no Screenplay. Not even an acting nomination for Douglas, who I think was highly. I think he earned it.
I think he should have gotten a nomination for this.
Yeah. I mean, that year went to Bridge on the River Kwai, which is a good movie.
It is. Mm-hmm.
But I think if there was a movie that was wrongfully ignored, I think it was this movie.
I mean, honestly, it is a hard movie to watch. I mean, you get halfway into it, you get to love these three soldiers, and it's like, oh, but they're gonna die.
Yeah.
You gotta come to grips with that.
Yeah. And the circumstances of why they're there is even more puzzling. It's like one, it was selected by chance. One was simply put in there because he knew some things about a certain commander. And then you had another one that was stated to be socially undesirable, which was
Yeah.
kind of interesting, you know.
Yeah.
He wasn't very attractive looking, so if you wanted to get rid of him, that's fine. But I'm willing to make one exception. Like if you want to get rid of one guy, get rid of him. You know, the very ugly one right there. So he could go.
Gentlemen of the court, there are times when I'm ashamed to be a member of the human race, and this is one such occasion. It's impossible for me to summarize the case for the defense since the court never allowed me a reasonable opportunity to present my case.
Are you protesting the authenticity of this court?
Yes, sir. I protest against being prevented from introducing evidence that I consider vital to the defense. The prosecution presented no witnesses. There has never been a written indictment of charges made against defendants. And lastly, I protest against the fact that no stenographic records of this trial have been kept. The attack yesterday morning is no statement of the honor of France. And certainly no disgrace to the fighting men of this nation. But this court-martial is such a stain and such a disgrace. The case made against these men is a mockery of all human justice.
What were some things theologically that you drew from this film, or comparisons that you thought of?
Primarily, just kept going over and over and over in my mind about how, man is just utterly depraved, and that's just how this film paints it very well, better than. Well, it paints it better than any Christian film I've ever seen.
Oh yes, this is what a Christian
it paints
movie
it a
should
lot
try
better
to
than
be.
most other films. It's really like, wow, how could these guys be so calloused and just looking for themselves?
Yeah,
and it explains it very well that they don't care about anyone but themselves, and the only time they ever try to do something good is because it benefits them.
Yeah.
And the only person who's the opposite of that is our Kirk Douglas, Colonel Dax.
Yeah.
Who's one general thinks that Dax has orchestrated this entire thing for his own gain, and
Great scene, by the way.
That was a really good scene. He just explodes at him, and it's like, no, I genuinely wanted justice to be done.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and great
and
scene,
you
by the way.
have to wonder that if the man had understood that about Dax, would he have stopped the execution, or would he have allowed it to go through?
Yeah, that is the flaw. That's another thing too, is humanity's inability to see his own errors.
Yes.
That's another thing about this movie that I kind of see is specifically that one individual, the man who was completely in charge of this entire
and
situation.
could have put a stop to all this.
Here is probably the top man in the army, or at least in this specific regiment.
That sector, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he could have simply put a stop to it. He was in power, or he had the authority to prevent this.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't, because he was assuming that Kirk Douglas's character. I will say this though. Maybe he was testing Douglas.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I don't
Okay.
get that feeling. Yeah,
I
think
just
it's
wanted to
possible. That's what I was kind of wondering at first. That's what I kept thinking. It's like, oh, maybe he's just trying to test it. Maybe but I really, at the end of the film, I walked away with the impression that this guy genuinely thought that Douglas was in for the glory himself.
Yeah, but then at the end, he does acknowledge that, yes, Douglas, you did really care about these men. You wanted to see justice to be served, but, and I pity you as I would a village idiot. And it's like,
yeah,
your feelings have no bearance on the situation. We're trying to fight a war, Dax. It's all about, we have to win this war. I have to win this war. We can't let like frivolous situations like this get in our way. We have to win a war. But he's failing to see the situation is that he was in control of the entire thing, and he let it slip by his fingers.
Yeah.
Let me get this straight, sir. You're offering me General Miro's command?
Come, Colonel Dax, don't overdo the surprise. You've been after the job from the start. We all know that, my boy. A promotion you have so very carefully planned for.
Sir, would you like me to suggest what you can do with that promotion?
Colonel Dax! You will apologize at once or I shall be placed under arrest.
I apologize for not being entirely honest with you. I apologize for not revealing my true feelings. I apologize, sir, for not telling you sooner that you're a degenerate, sadistic old man. And you can go to hell before I apologize to you now or ever again.
Colonel Dax, you're a disappointment to me. You have spoiled the keenness of your mind by wallowing in sentimentality. You really did want to save those men. And you were not angling for Miro's command. You're an idealist. And I pity you, as I would the village idiot. We're fighting a war, Dax, a war that we've got to win. Those men didn't fight, so they were shot. You bring charges against General Miro, so I insist that he answer them. Wherein have I done wrong?
Because you don't know the answer to that question. I pity you.
So anyway, we come to the final scene of this movie where a German girl is singing in front of the French army. Believe it or not, that's actually Stanley Kubrick's future wife. Actually,
oh really?
Yeah, and I've always, throughout the years, I was always wondering about what this scene was supposed to mean.
Yeah, I walked away with a similar feeling. It didn't quite make sense.
And knowing Kubrick, it's up for interpretation, of course. But I think what Kubrick was trying, and you could probably say this is where he was trying to make his anti-war statement, that maybe because of war, because of things like this, we lose track of our own the pleasant things in life, the beautiful things in life. Here we have this young, beautiful, attractive girl singing, not a great song, but something that feels down to earth, that feels human in the midst of all this chaos and blood and war. Here's this one little voice that sends a signal to these men that maybe that they are longing for normality. They're longing for home. That's how I kind of interpret that scene. That's how I kind of interpret that scene, because it's, because he seems to be sending some sort of a human message to, obviously to humanity. He's trying to say something, that hits you in the heart, that really, that steals your heart and brings you down to earth in a very dramatic way. I mean, how do you feel about the ending?
I mean, honestly, I really didn't quite put enough thought into it to figure it out. My wife said something interesting. She said that maybe it was trying to display that the soldiers were as much captive to the situation as she was. So that was something to consider. I really don't know. I'd have to think about it some more.
Okay.
To me, it honestly seemed out of place with the rest of the film, with the rest of the message.
Yeah, it seems the most out of place. Do you think that could be a scene where Kubrick is trying to make his anti-war statement? Right,
it might be. Yeah, that's the only place in the entire film that he could attempt to say something anti-war. And truthfully, that would be stupid on his part, because it doesn't match the rest of the film at all, and it should be cut.
It's the calmer part of the film.
Yeah.
So, but I like it. I really think it for me, it works. I think it really does work. Especially if that's where he's trying to make his statement. By the way, how do you feel about, anti-war films, by the way? Like, is that something you're kind of against or for?
I mean, it depends on the war and the reasons for the war. I am not against war, period. I think there is a time and place for it. But I'm not a warmonger either.
Yeah. Now, of course, we can definitely say, yeah, in history there were some wars that maybe were not rightfully fought or rightfully, that never should have taken place. I need to look up Vietnam, because I know people are still kind of on. I know Vietnam is still a very touchy subject for a lot of people. That a lot of people say, like, we shouldn't have interfered with the situation down there or something like that.
Yeah, that one's still not as touchy as like excuse me, it's like the Gulf War or the Iraqi War right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Which, truthfully, we wouldn't have the Iraqi War if Bush Sr. had finished the Gulf War like he should have.
That's
But-
true. As we close up here, Ben, what are your closing thoughts on Paths of Glory?
Good film, and definitely one that should not be lost to time.
I don't think this
got
one's going to
some-
be lost for time.
Yeah,
at
it's got
all.
some excellent performances, and a whatever whatever the statement at the end is, I'm not sure about. But the rest of the film, a profound statement on the depravity of man
Yes.
that just rings true for any time period.
Yeah, I would recommend this movie for Christian groups if you really wanted to do a study about the depravity of man. I think this is a really good film on that particular subject.
Oh
If
yeah,
you want to study
it'd be a
on
good
that.
one to diagnose and break apart.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I have nothing else to say about this movie. I love this movie. I loved it for many years. It's a great film. I say get it. By the way, until December 1st, the Criterion Collection has it. So if you want to, and it's on sale for 50% off. So if you want to get that edition, go on ahead. It's worth it. So that's going to do it for this episode of the Story to Screen Movie Review Podcast. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Ben, thank you as always for joining me.
No problem.
I think this is actually the first time since Mom's Night Out that you and I do an episode together.
Just the two of us?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been pairing up with quite a few other people
Yeah,
lately.
yeah. Oh, by the way, let me also make this announcement that next month is going to be a major movie month for Story to Screen. We're going to be doing the 10 Commandments from 1956, continuing our classic movie series. Then following that, Kyle Prohaska, the Christian filmmaker that we had on recently, will be joining us for Exodus, Gods and Kings. He'll be reviewing that movie with me. And then we got The Hobbit, the final Hobbit movie, The Battle of the Five Armies, which, Ben, you and I have to conclude that one.
Oh, yeah.
It's that one is yours and mine, I guess.
Yeah, we got to finish that one. Yeah.
Yeah, which I'm really staying away from everything. I'm not watching any. I've only seen 2 trailers and that's it. I don't want to see anything else.
Well, you don't have to wait long. It's coming up fast.
Yeah, and then it'll be over, and then next year will be the extended edition.
Sadness.
Yeah, I'm not feeling as saddened by the it's
No, me neither. Not as much as when Return of the King ended.
Yeah, I don't know why. It's kind of weird. But anyway, we'll be doing a Peanuts commentary on the Charlie Brown Christmas. So
That's a
Charlie,
good one.
Yeah, because we didn't have a Christmas movie to review, so it's like, why not do a film commentary on the? On
Oh, that'd be
Peanuts?
fun. Yeah.
So that will be our wrap up for 2014. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you very much for joining us tonight, and we'll catch you next week with the 10 Commandments. Take care, everybody. Cheers.
Sir,
Yes, sir.
I want us to move back to the front immediately.
I'll give the men a few minutes more, Sergeant.